Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a new series for you guys. It's called WonderTag Podcast, and it's just some, like two gals talking about the Pokemans. And it's with me and my good friend Erin. So welcome, Erin.
Hey fellas. So just like Noelle said, my name's Erin. You might know me from twitter.com. My handle is dumb_librarian, and I make memes about Pokemon. So I've been playing the game for about 2 years. I started playing it in the most random way. Was just in Walmart looking at the cards and was like, I guess I'll play, which is kind of an anomaly because I feel like people that play this game have either been playing for years and years and years, or they come from another game like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! But nope, not me. I'm just a weirdo who randomly decided in their adulthood that they were going to play Pokemon. I'm a grad student and librarian in Central Mississippi, but I'm originally from New York, and I am more of like a casual player, but I do play every weekend. So I'm a casually dedicated player. I feel like that's a good way to describe me. Noelle is a little bit more of the authority on the competitive play, so I'll let her take it from here and introduce herself.
Hey guys, so anybody that's new to the channel, this is kind of for you guys, and anybody that's, just started recently watching, want to get to know me, here's a little bit about me. So obviously my name's Noelle. I've been playing Pokemon since word vomit, right? I've been playing Pokemon since I was 6 years old. I kind of stopped around the 2012 mark when Black and White started coming out, just because I was like in high school and I didn't have a lot of people to play with. The game wasn't as popular at the time. So once I graduated, kind of like my senior year, I started playing again, and I've been competitively playing in Masters for the past 3 years now. I've been recently sponsored by Team Impulse Gaming. I'll go ahead, you can check them out down below. I'll give you our website. We do not bite, so please say hi to all of us at Regionals. We're pretty cool people. So yeah, I'm from like the Metro Detroit area, so I'm very lucky that I have plenty of places to play. I have everywhere to play in Michigan, in Ohio. I will take trips to like Indiana, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and even in Canada sometimes. So I get to see a pretty wide variety of like metas and stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, we're gonna bring some pretty interesting accents to this podcast because you've got that Detroit accent. I've got this really weird hybrid between like a southern twang and like, I don't know, upstate New York, I guess. I don't know.
It was actually really funny because when we were on the phone the other day, I was like, I don't want to think I talk no hood or nothing, but but I was talking to Erin, like some of my like little Detroit slang was coming out, and I'm pretty sure I kind of scared her on accident.
I talk to my friends all the time from New York, and they'll be like, why do you have an accent now? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't hear it, but yeehaw, I guess. The last big event that Noelle and I both attended was Memphis. So neither of us went to Portland, but we were both at Memphis, which was Standard. And it's insane how much Standard has changed in just a month. Like, I know that this game is always changing, but being kind of new to it, it's interesting for me to see how much a set like Lost Thunder can just immensely change the game. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight on this podcast. Just a little bit about choices heading into the next Standard Regionals, which again is Roanoke Regionals. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. We're going to talk first about a couple of the Lost Thunder cards that are being introduced to Standard for Roanoke. And the first one that we are going to talk about is Blacephalon. So Noelle, I'll let you start talking about Blacephalon because you have done way more testing than me. I have not played since Memphis, just
yes.
being busy and grad school and everything. So I'll let you go ahead and take it from here. Let's talk a little bit about Blacephalon and its place heading into Roanoke Regionals.
Yes, Blacephalon. I don't know about you guys, but it took me like 10 years to figure out how to say and pronounce this Pokemon's name. And then after watching the recent the Lost Thunder trailer and watching it just kind of like throw around its head like it's nothing, kind of like really disturbed me. And like the fact on like how insane this deck is, it like really like disturbs me as well. And so it really like pops off. You know, I've seen the list built and played in a lot of different ways. I'm currently actually playing it with Kiawe, and I'm kind of contemplating whether I want to keep it in there or not. Just because Kiawe, like if I start with Blacephalon, it allows me, you know, go ahead, Kiawe turn 1, can't attack anyways. So if I Kiawe turn 1 onto Blacephalon, that's ultimately doing, what, 200 damage if I send all of my fire energy to the Lost Zone. That's like a huge hit. Usually you don't need that much, so you could be even doing like 150 without any damage modifiers. So like, you know, like that hitting for that much damage like turn 2 is pretty insane. It's pretty mad consistent in my opinion, as well as having like Naganadel as a pretty solid secondary attacker. I don't know, I just feel like Naganadel is just like a match made in heaven for this card, so I'm really interested to see on how far this deck will actually go and perform. You know, like some of its weak points, like we're looking at like a 2 energy retreat cost, as well as it being 180 HP, having it really, you know, like sit at kind of like a vulnerable like HP point. 180 is like pretty like a easy, I don't want to say easy, but it's like a sweet spot. It's an easy number to hit. But I feel like it packs enough power where it will, I think it'll do good. Kind of like how Rayquaza is. It's very explosive. You know, when it explodes, it does a lot of damage, and you just get ahead in prizes, and that 180 doesn't really matter if you're taking the first couple of prizes.
Right, and one thing that you and I've talked about kind of off the record is just that, you know, Blacephalon and Rayquaza kind of work off the same dynamic. Like they either pop off or they don't. But I think that you've shared with me that you've found that Blacephalon just kind of gets there quicker and it's way more consistent than Rayquaza, because you don't have to kind of wait for your Vicavolts to come out and hope that they do. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
No, it definitely does, but like, you know, like there's a give and take to that. Like I feel like Rayquaza is a little bit more faster because of its ability, but also because of its ability, the downfall of that is like it's hard to resource management when you're throwing things away so fast. With Blacephalon,
absolutely,
like, you are doing a lot of damage, but it's more of a build up, and you're more able to resource management a little bit better with like your item and supporters. You know, you just have to keep in mind on how many energies you're sending to the Lost Zone.
Right. Absolutely. But I think that it's definitely a big contender for a lot of people at Roanoke.
By far. And then, you know, this is kind of like coming up on this next card we're going to talk about as well. You know, if we're going to see an increase of play on Blacephalon, Naganadel, you know, like everybody immediately thinks, okay, like how do I beat this deck? And the first card that comes into mind is Sceptile.
Yes, absolutely. So Sceptile, of course, having that ability Power of Nature, which prevents all damage done to your Pokemon that have any grass energy attached to them by attacks from your opponent's Ultra Beasts. So basically Ultra Beast immunity so long as you've got energy. Yeah,
so I definitely think that's a huge... It's definitely a card that we should all keep in mind, especially since, like, you know, like, you with that deck, the moment that Sceptile's put down, it's over, you know, unless, like, you're able to stall around it, I guess, but at that point... go ahead.
Right, I'm sorry. And with the Grovile ability to be able to go ahead and get your Sceptiles out quicker than a normal stage 2 deck, I definitely think that it has the consistency to compensate for any kind of criticism of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean. Like, it's like it. A lot of people will be like, okay, well, it's a stage 2, Bucephalon's going to outpace it, and like in some scenarios, I definitely can see how Bucephalon can outpace it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, once you play down, like if you can just save one Trico for like 2 turns, being able to throw that Grovile down, and that Grovile automatically gets you a Sceptile, or maybe you have like a rare candy and Sceptile in your hand, you're ready to go turn 2. Like the moment that hits the field with a grass energy attached to it, like it's over. You can't get rid of it. Like the only options that I can think right now is Energy Drive with Lele, but again, at that point, like there's so little energy on both of them that so what, you're gonna cheese one knockout, but they have enough time to set up a second one and they knock out your 2 prize Lele, you know. So it's definitely, you know, something to consider as well, since the fact that a lot of people will probably still end up playing some sort of like Buzzwole Shrine, and like there's Necrozma in the meta right now, like with Malamar. So like it is definitely something to think about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you and I have talked a lot about how stage 2 decks are not to be feared anymore, or not necessarily feared. You shouldn't fear playing them anymore, not in the current meta, because it's a lot different than the last, I would say, 2 years have been.
Yeah, no, the meta has definitely slowed down for us to be able to play a lot of these cards now. I mean, like we're getting more consistency and draw support, especially in Lost Thunder. Like we're getting Sightseer, and you can discard your hand, and I think it's draw up to 5. And then you have Zebstrika that's coming out. That's a stage 1, but it allows you to discard your hand and draw up to 4 cards. Like, you know, like there's ways of digging for things now. So I don't, and like a lot of people, the counter argument is, okay, well, I still need to get 2 cards to put, you know, get my stage 2 out, like with a rare candy or whatever. And like that's cool and all, and I get that, but we have Zoroark now, we have Sightseers, we have Zebstrikas, we have our Rangaroo. Like I don't feel like that's something to be afraid of anymore.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. So other stage 2s that kind of, I think, will be contenders going into Roanoke Regionals. Let's talk a little bit about Lost March.
Oh boy, my wannabe Night March deck.
Right, I know you've done a lot of testing with this.
Yeah, I played a lot of Night March, and I mean, who hasn't back when it was in Standard? And I mean, I still even played a handful of it in Expanded from time to time. But it definitely doesn't have the firepower that Night March had back when Night March was in Standard. Like for an example, Night March had Battle Compressor. That's one item card that you played to get any 3 cards into your discard, and that could ultimately be 3 Night Marchers straight to your discard, where with Lost March, their quote-unquote Battle Compressor is something like Lost Mixer, it's Lost Blender now, where you play the card, you discard any 2 cards that get sent to the Lost Zone, you draw a card. So, you know, you have to find those, you have to find Pokemon and the Lost Mixer and be able to play them. So that's 3 cards you have to find to put things into the Lost Zone, and you're only ultimately putting 2 things into 2 Pokemon into the Lost Zone. Another one of the deck's weaknesses is the fact that it has very little HP. So if you get hit by like 2 or 3 flying flips, man, it is over for you. I mean, you know, there's definitely like ways of getting around that. Like you could play Sky Pillars, but that's just a field blower or a stadium bump. You could play the oh god, the Machoke. The Machoke, I don't remember exactly what set it's from, now that I'm thinking about it, that there's an ability that makes it so no bench damage, or you're not affected by bench damage, like your opponent can't hit you on the bench. Oh my god, that was a lot of words. So like, you know, that's something definitely to think about, maybe test. I haven't gone that far into testing this deck. I really like it because it's wildly consistent in a way. The two big problems that I found was having jump bluffs in my hand, and B, once I put 80 to maybe like 100 damage, once I'm hitting around that mark in my lost zone, it's really hard to accelerate that to maybe like a 210 number or more. And like, again, it's like the finding the lost mixers and finding all the Trumbeaks, finding all my jump bluffs, or making sure my jump bluffs aren't in my hand. So it's definitely a really good deck, but I would say it's probably like a tier 2. It's not going to be a tier 1. I could definitely see myself playing it at maybe like a cup or a league challenge, but I don't think it's anything crazy enough to bring to a regional. Again, it's a firecracker deck, you know, it either goes off or it doesn't.
Right. Absolutely. And let's see. Yeah, I think that it is pretty interesting and a fun deck, and it definitely fits well. So my local league is really just kind of interesting because everybody brings something new every week. It's a lot more casual mixed with competitive, which is like my play style. And I have not been to league in a month.
Shame on you.
I know I'm very dedicated, as you can tell. No, I'm just in grad school. It's really hard to get over there. But
it's okay, we forgive you.
But this is very much the kind of deck that I'm used to seeing. And so that's why I think my interest is in it, because it reminds me of a lot of the decks that we play at my local league. So moving on to probably our last two cards for Lost Thunder that we're going to talk about are probably the two most hyped cards of the set, in my opinion. So the first one is Aura. And I remember when this was announced, everybody kind of lost their minds and they were like, this is really cool. So let's talk a little bit about that and what you think it will see play. Will it see play? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Man, so I really do think this card lost its hype over time, which is very unfortunate because I think it's a pretty solid card. I don't think it's like a standalone deck itself, but it has some like pretty cool like effects and abilities that it brings to the game. Like Thunderlap Zone, is that the ability? Thunderlap Zone?
Thunderlap Zone.
I know, it's just such an odd word. Thunderlap.
I'm a big fan of its attack, which is Plasma Fist.
See, I think that's sick. Like, come and catch these Plasma Fists, bro. I'm about to take all 6 prizes here. Anyway, so like Thunderlap Zone, it's a mana feasibility. You know, it's free retreat with anything that has electric energy attached to it. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a really useful ability now that we don't have things like Floatstone. You know. I can see it being like a 1 over 2 of in some decks, you know, like I was talking about with my team, and like we can see it in Ray, for instance, the GX, you know, like especially in like mirror matches and stuff like that. You know, we're not always going to have time to do Tempest GX to get 10 new cards, as nice as that would be. It'd be a very good like recovery, especially if we what's its ability where it discards 3 off the top. I'm losing it.
Stormy Winds.
Stormy Winds, yeah. Like, if what happens if you Stormy Winds both of your energy recyclers in one Stormy Winds? That's gonna hurt you really hard, right? It's
literally me at Memphis.
Like, it hurts, right? So like, why wouldn't you
painful.
Want a full voltage GX and go ahead and slam more energy on the board to like go ahead and pump out the damage? Another interesting idea, I was actually streaming a couple nights ago, and somebody was telling me they were playing Tapu Koko GX with Zeraora, which I thought was very interesting, especially with like the arrow trails and the GX move and all that jazz. So I thought there's a couple interesting ideas you can go with this, and I feel like when it was being hyped before, a lot of people were like, oh, well, it's not going to do good because it has fighting weakness. And at the time, that's when we were like at Buzzwole Prime and Buzz Lycanroc, Zoroark Lycanroc, and like there's just like a lot of like, there was a lot of rock in the meta, so it was rocking. So I feel like that's something we don't have to be so fearful of anymore, especially since it's kind of changed and the meta's changing a lot with Last Thunder coming out. In my opinion, like we have things like Malamar. Malamar's been super huge, so that's been kind of nullifying a lot of like Buzzwole decks because of the weakness, as well as things like Naganadel. Like Naganadel being in decks as another psychic attacker. So I feel like it's definitely a card to not forget about.
Yeah, and it appeals to the furry community, so that's a plus too.
Pause. Not a plus to me. Not a plus to me.
I just want to know like the reason. I mean,
listen, meme dumpster.
I don't know.
Just take it to Twitter.
Because Chief, that's just not it. So, let's go ahead and talk about the other, probably even more hyped card, and something that I think that has lived up to its hype. My queen, Alolan Ninetales GX, the fairy variant that is coming or has come out in Lost Thunder. So let's talk a little bit about her.
I'm really sad that I can't enjoy her art because there's so much text all over the page, like all over the card. It's just like, it looked like they word vomited all over it. About the card itself, though, Mysterious Guidance is God-sent ability. Again, it gives us more consistent to like stage 2 decks, allowing us, when we play it from our hand, right? We play it to our hand to evolve probably one of our tasty bacon Vulpix. We can go ahead and grab 2 good old item cards of our choice and use those to however we please. So I think it's a really good card, and it can be paired with a lot. Honestly, you know, I was testing against with one of my friends with Ninetales Gardevoir. That's definitely a viable deck. And the thing is with Alolan Ninetales, like, it's a Lost March killer in a way, because I mean, Snowy Wind, it does 70 damage and 30 damage to the bench, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like
it's the knockoff Jet Punch.
Right. Knockoff Jet Punch.
But better.
So like that kills one jump bluff and practically kills something on the bench. That, you know, like you're hitting it for 30 damage. If it's a Natu, you gotta hit twice for it to die, but it's gonna be dead. It's gonna happen real fast too.
And if you're ever going to use the term busted or broken, I know that's become a little bit memed on lately, but Sublimination GX is definitely the type of element of this game that I would describe as busted or broken. If your opponent's active Pokemon is an Ultra Beast, it is knocked out.
Yeah, and again,
so,
like, talking about Bucephalon, that's another like prime example on something we all need to think about before deciding that we're gonna all play Bucephalon. You know, and I feel like they wrote this card about this clown and like, man, dog, he's out here, he's clowning, he's crazy, he's gonna like bust a roof out here. And they're like, okay, well, he's super cool, but we really need to find like somebody to tame him, like a responsible girlfriend like Ninetales. Like calm down, bro. But yeah, no, like, and touching back on what you were saying about busted and broken, the whole entire community ruined that for me, because I say that literally about everything, guys. I'm a hairstylist. I can't like go into work and be like, hey Noelle, we're gonna do a Starbucks run. It's half off holiday drinks, and I can't just look her dead in the eye and be like, yo, that's busted, that's broken, right? Because that's exactly what I did today. And she's like, what did I break? And I was just like, oh my God, it just get me my coffee.
Dude, I love how kind my coworkers are about like the Pokemon stuff, because they'll just like, you know, I'll tell them what I'm doing this weekend. Like, you know, when I went to Memphis, I was like, yeah, I'm going to like a big tournament. And they're like, that's so cool. And like when I came back, bless them to the end of the earth and back, they looked me dead in the eyes and said, did you win?
Oh.
And I just looked at them and I said, no. But I love it. Just like
80-year-old woman's heart.
Yeah, just not to be ageist or anything, but I work with some older women, and they are all born and raised Southern people, and it's pretty interesting to explain Pokemon, the trading card game, to them. Love it. Love them. They're queens. So moving on to another viable pairing with Ninetales. So we're going to kind of transition to some other decks that are either coming back or staying in the meta, or that we predict will stay in the meta or come back. And so that first one is going to be Digitales. Yeah.
Ooh, I don't like that. That sounds dirty.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Digitales, Decidueye, and its pairing with Ninetales GX.
You know what? This is something like we were just recently talking about before we decided we were gonna like really record this podcast too. And you know, I still haven't had a chance to really like check it and try it out. I mean, in theory, it sounds like it's a good idea, especially since we're hitting for bench damage with Snowy Wind. It's not a bad attack at all. But we got like 2 different energy types going around, and like, yeah, we can use rainbow energy, and yeah, Ninetales can grab the rare candy from Decidueye, and I feel like now I'm being a hypocrite about everything I was saying, but it scares me, I'm not gonna lie. But I definitely, in theory, it sounds really good. So
right, it would just take some testing to kind of see how that is, and I feel like more people are starting to test that deck. So going into this weekend, I'm sure you'll play this weekend. I'm going to play this weekend. We'll see what that deck is about.
Yes, sir.
But that Alolan Ninetales GX is pretty expensive right now, so...
Oh my god, it's ridiculous.
I'm going to have to play against somebody, not play it.
To
find out. So some other decks that are kind of still hanging in there. Let's talk a little bit about Zoroark and the introduction of Ditto Prism Star.
Yeah, so this is a really good deck. It was really solid to begin with, even before Last Thunder has like been announced. So, and what I love about this deck is it's very consistent. Like you have extra, quote-unquote extra resources with like Bloodthirsty Eyes, and then you have the consistency of Zoroark using trade, and again it has a pretty solid attack right it's beating. So being able to rate a speeding and like knock out anything for twice, same thing with Claw Slash, is super radical, on top of like hitting weakness for things with fighting, and not having that psychic weakness is pretty cool. Also having the GX attack Dangerous Rogue is pretty much an OHKO, like right off the bat or whatever. But this deck kind of gets scary with Ditto, and you know, I know that sounds so silly, but the moment anybody lays a Ditto down while I'm testing, it scares me. I'm like, listen, I don't know who you want to be when you grow up. I don't know what you're going to be. Are you going to be a Lycanroc? Are you going to like pull me out of my grave and put me in front and kill me again? Are you going to be a Zoroark? Are you going to get some new cards to knock me out and steal all your prize cards? Like, who do you want to be? So
also, that Ditto is squaring up in his card art.
Listen,
he is ready to go.
He's like, you about to catch these squishy hands and you ain't gonna like it. He's like, I don't know what I'm gonna be when I grow up, but when I grow up, I'm gonna beat you up.
Almighty Evolution is pretty nuts, and I think that it's really interesting in this deck.
Oh yeah, and you know, like I keep thinking to myself, you know, we're getting all these like super, super cool abilities. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what if we had Hex back? Or what if we had like a Wobbuffet back? What if we had Garbotoxin back? Like, how would all these cards change? And that's probably like a different podcast for a different day, because those are things that are kind of, I mean, not Hex anymore, but those are things that are like relevant and like expanded. So that's a little like food for thought to munch on for a bit. But man, I think since this deck is so consistent and familiar, and people are familiar with it, I believe it's gonna see not in the volume that we're used to seeing, but we're definitely gonna see this deck in play in Roanoke.
Absolutely. I also, just kind of like side note, I'm really sorry. I just remembered that there's literally a mute button on my phone. So when I'm over here sipping on my LaCroix, I could have been muting the microphone. So I'm really sorry if anybody hears me swallowing. Because I'm just sitting there like, wow, I'm swallowing really loud. I hope no one can hear me. And then I remember there's literally a mute button on this thing. So sorry, everyone. Please don't be deterred by my loud swallowing.
Oh my God. I'm just thinking of all the wrong things right now. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry about that. I like just cut out like a good laughing fit for that. It was going on for a good like 2 minutes. We're gonna move on now.
Noelle and I are adults, okay? So we're gonna move on to Alolan Executor and talk a little bit about how certain cards make it a little bit stronger in this meta, and how it's still super viable, in my opinion, for Roanoke.
Yeah, so with Alolan Executor, I really think it's an amazing one-prize attacker. If you guys have not noticed, I love one-prize attackers because I like making my opponents reach to take an extra prize, the quote-unquote extra prize, because it feels really good when I just have to knock out 3 things and be done with the game, and they have to try to knock out 6. It just, I don't know, it's like a safety blanket for me. I love it. So with Alolan Executor, it's a pretty solid card, and it gets Shuckle. So beforehand, like, you know, with the chipping at Shrine and all that jazz, it's pretty solid. It was okay. But I feel like Shuckle gives it more of a consistent touch to it. So Shuckle has an ability called Freshly Squeeze, and when you play the Pokemon from your hand onto the bench, you can search your deck for, I believe, 3 energy cards. 3 specifically basic energy cards, and you can put them in your discard. So that just immediately just being able to like Ultra Ball, bam, Shuckle, throw the energy in your discard is absolutely amazing for Executor, especially since beforehand we didn't have a lot of like discard draw to thin our deck or get things into the discard beforehand. Again, we have things like Substrika and Sightseer now that can help us a little bit with that. But I feel like the Shuckle is just built for this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty nasty. It was nasty to begin with, and it just got nastier. So, speaking of nasty decks, literally my least favorite.
Squids.
There's something in me that is just bothered to the core when I see Inkays. When my opponent flips over Inkays, I swear, I don't know what it is, but Malamar is a fantastic deck. It's just, I don't know, I can't stand it.
I'm so on the same page with you too, because again, it's such a literal nasty deck that it's just, you feel, you like, after you play so many Malamar decks in one day, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And it leaves
absolutely
an even sour taste in your mouth when you try to play Malamar for 2 weeks after that, and it's just not working for you.
Absolutely. No, 100%. So let's talk a little bit about Lost Thunder's effect on Malamar and whether or not it strengthens or weakens it. I think that it's been strengthened a little bit, to my dismay.
I definitely think it's been strengthened a lot, actually. Looking at Malamar's spread, we're getting some pretty cool cards, and this is actually probably one of my top 3 picks for Roanoke. I just probably have to put a little bit more elbow grease in my 60, but I really like it. So with Malamar's spread, we get cards like Giratina. If it gets put to the discard, you put it back on your bench. You do 10 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. We get Spell Tag. You knock out a Psychic Pokemon, and you can put like 4 damage counters. I can't remember if it's on the attacking or if it's just like anywhere you like, but that's still like 4 damage counters wherever you want them. So it's super cool, and you know, to have cards like Lele's Magical Swap and just all the support for it, I think it's pretty cool. And again, 1 prize attacker.
Absolutely. So but I just can't stand looking at Malamar. I still, no matter what. But no, it's pretty great, and I definitely think it will see a lot of play at Roanoke. So I think that's kind of the gist of what we wanted to talk about tonight going into Roanoke Regionals. I'm sure we're still a couple weeks out. What are we, 2 or 3 weeks out now?
Yeah, 2.
2 weeks out, yeah. So still got some time for things to change, but this is kind of what we're looking at in our thoughts. Noelle, did you want to add any cards to the discussion at all?
I don't know. I kind of touched bases on everything that I'm really excited to see, you know. And again, like something that we all have to keep in mind is like Brazil is happening before Roanoke, so
right, absolutely.
It's gonna be a saucy week, guys.
It truly will be, and I'm just kind of excited to see how it plays out. So I think that's it for this episode. There's going to be a mini-sode that's being uploaded at the same time as this one about the CP change. So if you have time, go ahead and check that out. We'll leave the link in the description below. And thank you for tuning in. And please continue to watch Noelle's content because she is awesome. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, that's where you can find me at dumb_librarian, or we also have a Twitter shared for this podcast. It's called WonderTag ptcg.
Yeah, so there's all that jazz. I'll definitely leave links down below in the description. Guys, I also have a Twitter and a Twitch where I do live streams with a lot of ptcgo. So I'd love it if you guys like come and check me out and hang out. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the little bell button, so you know what's popping over here. And I really appreciate everybody's support I've gotten over the past month and starting this YouTube channel. Like the love and support has been absolutely amazing. So thank you all so much, and I hope you tune into our next little special. Bye, guys.
Bye.